Hello there everyone, welcome to your guide to Ikit Claw of the Skaven. As it is typical in these guides, I played through the initial turns and got a feel for the faction. I'll show you my conclusions and in the end provide you some army compositions that I would try out in my campaigns. As always, not an in-depth guide, just what I would do before starting up a campaign. Without further, here we begin with Ikit Claw. So for your short victory, we need to level up the Forbidden Workshop to rank 3 to Warp Tech Lab. More on that later. Now we also need to destroy the following factions. Estalia, they're very close by. The Tylea, so basically, our neighbors, and Carcassonne here, so the Fey Enchantress. And also to occupy, loot, raise or sack 30 different settlements. Pretty a straightforward campaign, very standard actually, should be easy. It's a very good welcoming to the faction as well. If you achieve this, the reward is +3 to recruit rank, which is nice to ensure, of course, your units are already good once they are recruited. In terms of the long campaign, it requires the short to occupy, loot, raise or sack 75 different settlements, and then to control 7 of this list of settlements. These are pretty spread out, as you can see. You should notice here on the minimap there. So Karakate Peaks, of course, Nagashizar, Crookback Mountains. You can see that there's plenty of them just on this area of the map. Let me show you like this. There's plenty of them just on this area here of the map. So by all means, you already control one of them, which is Skaven Blight, and then controlling this. And of course, it doesn't need to be direct ownership. It can be via vassals, military allies. So that's also helping out. Therefore, I'll classify this as a rather easy long campaign to do, especially because he's in the vicinity. Actually, he starts in the vicinity for a lot of these. Achieving this will give you global recruitment capacity +2. Not bad, but Skaven already have great recruitment overall, so this could be a bit better, especially for Ikit, but well, that's what I have. Now, Ikit, he's the chief warlock engineer. He gains access to the clan Skryre Forbidden Workshop. More on that later. Research rate is +20%. That's excellent, actually. And then loyalty +2 for new recruits. This basically means that you likely are not suffering any loyalty issues. And you have -40% construction costs for engineering buildings. This always helps. In terms of climates, actually, it's pretty cool. It's one of the best, actually, factions to dominate the map with, especially because the Chaotic Wasteland, it's not really that bad. So yeah, it's one of the factions that I would definitely recommend. The races, actually. Skaven in particular, it's one of the races that I would recommend to try and conquer the whole map with. It's definitely really a good idea for you. It helps cement this. They can go nearly anywhere, so yeah, that's good. So your starting location is a 1-settlement province. Although highly defensible, it will be a pain to recruit actually more troops, since what you gain is +1 recruit slot per settlement in the province. So yeah, the few provinces nearby have 3 settlements, so that also won't help you to get better military possibilities, but still, you will be able to manage this. Now, typical expansion is, of course, to dominate Estalia, to dominate the areas of Tylea, maybe get rid of the Vampire Coast here as well, just have a solid foothold here, then either proceed into Bretonnia, or you may wish to go over to Ulthuan, to the south. It's up to you. As soon as you finish up Castle Carcassonne, as soon as you finish up Carcassonne's territory, then you're pretty much on a sandbox game, which is quite decent. Now, get rid of Empire factions, Beastmen, Vampire Coast, the Dwarves, etc. You have plenty of enemies, not too many allies, as you will see later in just a bit. But yeah, it's a good sandbox feel campaign, which I always love. So, diplomacy with the Skaven. It's always tricky. For your position, greenskins will likely be your best bet for allies, mostly because you're going to be fighting everyone that they hate. Although the Vampire Coast nearby may help for a while, and who knows, they may become some, unwilling allies. It would depend. For instance, right here, I'm actually trespassing because that shouldn't be so much, and raiding them and stuff. But you can always have a playthrough where you gift a settlement, for instance, to them. Maybe you conquer something from Belegar Ironhammer, gift to them, so that you cement the relationships. It's up to you. Now, enemies will always be the Order Tide. You started with an Empire faction. You need to destroy Carcassonne, so the Bretonnians. So expect the dwarves and others to become your mortal enemies too. Now, outposts, of course, if you manage to get some outposts with the greenskins, their infantry, their cavalry, their single entities, they're always nice. You can get something from the some ranged artillery, for instance, or some monsters and flyers from the Vampire Coast, and of course some flyers or good cavalry units from the Vampire Counts. They all should help you out in terms of filling in the necessities that you may have with your armies. As for mechanics, undercities are a nice idea, such as the one that I have here in Lothern. In essence, you have several buildings that you can build. I'm not going to go through all of them, but the main idea is that you get some resources, some food, for instance, from the place, or you get some income, for instance, which is always nice. It always gives some Skaven corruption, but there's a new factor here, which is the discoverability. So you kind of need to use these ones to ensure, to build these ones to ensure that you're not discovered. That's the main point here. In addition, you also have the possibility of a Vermintide, which is to summon an army upon building this camp. Or, in addition, you can also build a Doomsphere to nuke the place, basically. But it's quite expensive, just raise. I wish it would do something else, But still, it raises the Undercity, it raises the settlement, and yeah, it costs a lot. 6,000, 15 turns to complete. It's quite a lot, so yeah, that's a big issue here. Now, food. Food is your unique currency, basically. You gain it by fighting battles and special buildings, specifically the Undercities ones. And for the most part, what you're using is to avoid penalties rather than receive buffs. As you can see, I have plentiful food here, so more growth, more control, more leadership. Those are always good, but the penalties are incredible. So the less income from raiding, from post-battle loot, from sacking, less leadership, less construction costs, which is, or more construction costs, which is crazy, so overall you're trying to avoid that rather than, gain the benefits. Okay, now in terms of the corruption, so you have the Skaven corruption. So the more the Skaven corruption you have, the more the number of uses for the Menace Below, which is basically just an army ability to summon a unit of clan rats anywhere on the battlefield, which is quite tactical, it's quite good. Okay. It also provides some food and public order when low and public order penalties when high, but really nothing too detrimental, really. It's not a big problem, nothing that you cannot handle. Now, an additional sort of mechanic, let me lower this, sort of mechanic is that the Skaven actually ambush in their natural stance. Every battle you initiate has a chance to become an ambush, and some army compositions are entirely possible just because of this one. So let's talk about rights first. You do have a food per turn, growth control, and recruitment costs. Very good one, actually. You do have a diplomatic relations with Skaven, gaining loyalty, hero action success chance, and enemy hero decrease there. And then this army ability to give the, allies in range, or actually to affect enemies in range, to give them lower spell resistance, which is excellent to make them, more keen to suffer damage from your spells. Then you also have the Pestilence scheme to hire a Plague Priest hero to spread a deadly plague, or the Warlock Engineer hero, which targets a foreign settlement or establishes an Undercity, which is great. It's summoned at your faction leader, always remember that. Now, speaking of the most interesting one, it's that Ikit has actually a specific resource, which is Warpful. You can discover it in battle, or hero actions, or missions, or workshop upgrades, as you can see there. And what you do is actually you can upgrade specific units, such as the Doom Wheels, the Doom Flayers here. You can see that it causes to all armies, and it's really great. They become so amazing. So basically, that's why, for the most part with Ikit's faction, you can just go into some Doom Flayers, Doom Wheels, and that's fine. Doom Wheels, of course, it gives them more speed, more charge, as you can see there. Of course, you have to kind of check out these before trying to decide. Okay, but for the most part, you'll be using definitely for the weapons teams. So rattling guns, warp lock Jezails, the warp grinders, the warp fire throwers. These are the units that you can actually enhance, and by all means, they give a lot of good buffs to your units, especially to these guys. So it's really great. It does cost some food, of course, but by all means, these make sure that You get all these units, and then you also gain access to specific weapons teams, specific Jezels here, you know, some specific regiments of renown, so that's really cool. And finally, you do have the Doom rockets, so you have a nuke in battle. That's basically what it means. And of course, you can give him some upgrades. So these increases storage for the Doom rockets. You get more casualty replenishment rate after using a Doom rocket. That's always good. So they'll cause additional damage over time, etc. So in essence, a very nice mechanic over here that you can also upgrade. You can also upgrade this Forbidden Workshop. Of course, that's up to in the province. But in essence, that's really cool. You need to get all this to ensure that you can actually level it up. So yeah, in essence, very good mechanic or a set of mechanics for Ikit. One of the most interesting Skaven lords for sure. So in terms of army stances, let's talk about it. They ambush while attacking, already mentioned that, but you also have the ambush, which is the waiting one, you know, the defensive one. You just set up an ambush and you hope for them to take the bait. You also have raiding, which costs 50% movement to establish. It does give you food, which may be detrimental, of course, other than just the income. You also have the encamp, allowing you to replenish and to be immune to most attrition, which is excellent. It's always useful when a faction has this. And you have the channeling, Winds of Magic Power Reserve. Now, to be fair, this is always like in detriment of being able to ambush while attacking. So there's a case in point for them not really requiring the channeling, because the chance of ambush is just so fantastic, you know, that channeling, you know, having a little bit more magic doesn't really change anything compared to the fact that you can ambush, you know, that idea. And then you have to use the underway. You have that option, which is always so tactical. It's really cool to ensure that you can traverse a difficult terrain instantly. Yeah, all the options. Just be wary that you may be intercepted. Not that with Ikit Claw it's not a good thing, because sometimes if you're intercepted, actually the battle map is much better. So you can always try that option too if you wish. Now, in terms of edicts, very simple. You have a growth construction cost for all buildings there. You have a control and corruption reduction, note. You have a recruitment cost and local recruitment capacity. Note that for Ikit you may need this, especially because you only have this initial province and you lack a little bit of recruitment slots, so don't underestimate this one. And then you have Skaven corruption and more food, which sometimes it may be the one that you have to take if you're really suffering on food. So yeah, that's typically the idea. Otherwise, decent edicts actually to help in various circumstances. So, similar to the greenskins, every single settlement gives you a local recruitment capacity increase. So, you know, recruitment provinces should be the ones with 3-4 settlements, but there are very few with 4 settlements nearby. So, for the Skaven Blight here, they have 3 landmarks. So this one gives you less cooldown after expanding the Under Empire, which is great, and more Skaven corruption in provinces overall, so that's really cool. You also have the Council Chamber of the 13, so more control. These are all faction-wide, what I mentioned. Control, Lord Recruit rank, global recruitment capacity, and corruption. That's always nice. It's always cool. Then you have this interesting building, the Warpstone Tractor Beam. So not only generates food, but it gives you research rate, okay, and some recruit rank for artillery units, which is kind of nice. Some income. But the most important part is that it actually allows you to recruit some specific units, such as the Warp 5 throwers, the Rattling Guns, and the Warp Like Jezzails, and also the Clan Rat Spears, you know, the Clan Rats here. So it's kind of nice that you get this option, because typically these units are, for instance, the Warlock Jezzails, they are tier 4 here. Of course, I'm already building it up here, but it's still because I wanted, you know, some quick rattling guns, and they are less expensive. But yeah, it's always a good idea to have this building, of course, to get just those typical units in the beginning. Now, in terms of the infrastructure buildings, before I talk about the military, so every single building actually provides gold, which is always excellent. It always provides income, so you don't have anything specifically dedicated to income, because every single building does that. So you have a growth casualty replenishment rate, and it also provides Skaven corruption. By the way, every single building also provides Skaven corruption. Then we have this arcane generators, strictly for the major settlements. Provides you income from old buildings, okay, and some food generated there, so it's always good. Then we have some income and lesser recruitment costs, and of course this reduces other types of corruption by -3, which is excellent. And then I have a very nice control building. You don't really need more than just one with this temple, and it gives some lord recruit rank, hero recruit rank, all the good stuff, some income of course, which is excellent. Note that you need med to unlock some technologies by building specific buildings, so be wary of that. Now in terms of military buildings, you have 6, and you'll need to build 5 of them need to be built on the capital province, so you can only build the basic infantry one in the minor settlements, which is kind of bad. It's preferable to have all the buildings slightly up to tier 3. It's much better. They do have good combos at tier 3, especially with Ikit Claw having Warplock Jizaels there. So it's really cool. You have some gutter runners if you want. You have some storm vermin for your front line if you need. You also have some plague claw catapults, some plague monks if you want something. Maybe you want to go into the rat ogres front line if you prefer that unit, just for, even if it is just aesthetical. Right now you can actually have different combinations. So yeah, it's really cool. You do have some good tier 3 units, so you can be effective with that. Now, in terms of research, let's talk research. It's fairly extensive, which I always like, and many are locked behind buildings, so be wary of that. They buff a lot in terms of units. They get tremendously good, which is always excellent. It allows you different combinations for sure, and they also give some bonuses for your campaign, such as for instance giving more growth, so it's giving more control. So even though it's small here and there, it's always essential to keep having these to influence your campaign. And of course, one of the ideas is that it actually adds some units here and there to the Vermintide on the city building, which is excellent. So by the time that you reach the end, a Vermintide would be very powerful as well. So as always, you have your lord or specific skills, then you have the melee or yellow line, and then you also have the caster line. So Ikit in specific, he's also caster, he's also good in melee, which is always nice. Okay, so in essence, you also have the blue line or campaign and the red line or army. So the blue line does not have replenishment, but most lords have that skill in a better way in their specific skills, for instance, so don't worry about it. You do have lesser upkeep here, which is always nice, less some ambush defense chance. But yeah, for the most part, I would not focus on the blue line at all, just getting the campaign movement range, but it's up to you. You may wish to get some, some lesser recruitment costs or more ambush success chance. This is likely the one that I would take, or maybe the looter to getting some more income from looting settlements, that sort of idea. The red line allows crazy cool combinations. It's definitely one of the most interesting rosters, just based on that. They have quite cheap combinations too, lots of units. It allows you to spend skill points in other areas easily, so yeah, it's always one of the best for me. And in terms of lords and heroes, they have so many options. It's really cool. Because they have, the chieftain, it's good with infantry, the assassin, good for assassin, and it actually replenishes troops. Then you have the Ashen sorcerer, and you still have the plague priests. You still have the pack master, which is also good to replenish troops, and he's good with monsters. You also have the warlock engineer, which is excellent for weapons teams. I recommend you always get one. So you have great options in terms of heroes. It's about one of the best factions in terms of heroes. Nearly all of them are tier 3 except that Ashen sorcerer. So yeah, they're always cool. It's always a very good one. 2 options for replenishment, which is good, so it gives you plenty of options. Most of them focus on specific units, so yeah, very good one. So here are the red line skills for the Skaven. So the second line, just to note, kind of mixes them all up a bit. So be on the lookout to actually maximize your armies. Don't be, don't just immediately assume. Really read what gives what, so that you don't, don't make a mistake of buffing some unit that you don't wish. Of course, for Ikit Claw, well, you can always have the typical Doom stack with just Jezzails, Rattling Guns, Poison, Wind Golbadiers, you know, or, you know, the mortars here. So yeah, that sort of idea is nice, of course. I just wanted to recommend something slightly different. So for instance, the Warp Grinders here, their main idea is to lock the enemy in place. You also have the heroes that can frontline, so you kind of have to count these as 6 frontline infantry units, you know, basically. Then you have some Doom players, some quick chariot units, in essence, to go and flank the enemy while everything else is getting shredded. For the most part, it's very likely that the enemy doesn't even reach the Warp Grinders there, so yeah. You can have a different take, of course. You can have just the standard halberds in line, or just some Stone Vermin in line, or even Plague Monks if you wish, with just, again, a very stout weapons team line. Or you can go the monster road. You know, you can always go the monster road. The best idea here is note how effective it is in terms of redline skills. You don't spend too much, so Ikit can actually build up his spells, can actually build up his specific skills, and even a little bit of melee, because you can actually get good compositions like this. Now, then we have the Weapons Engineer, which actually further enhances the Warlock Jezzails, Rattling Guns, so the units that you already are enhancing overall. So for the most part, this is sort of the same idea. Same idea here, the Warp Grinders just lock the enemy in place. You can use Skaven Slaves, you can use Clan Rats. I just like to go thematic, that's really it. And just have some Plague Call Catapults and Warp Lightning Cannons, which are very accurate, both. They're very good against different opponents. Or the same idea, just getting some Storm Vermin there to defend, so why not? Then you can have the Night ones, the Night Runner ones idea, just some concealers, really. So for instance, this army, all of it is hidden, which is always nice to use. It's always really cool to use this, especially considering that you have some ambushes. So yeah, always consider these specific thematic armies if you wish. And then we have some different armies, of course, all focus on the weapons themes, so different weapons themes here and there, you know, just if you wish, or just, for instance, relying entirely on some monsters if you wish for that solution. Of course, for Ikit Claw, probably instead of these monsters, you would just use some more weapons themes and some of these units. Likely this army, for instance, would be a staple in my campaigns. I just like using some single entities, some monsters as well, because they're so cool. But for the most part, you're never wrong with just using these sort of armies, or this sort of army in your campaign. So Ikit, he embraces the playstyle of the weapons themes like no other. If you enjoy just having a powerful ranged unit that melt everything while the enemy desperately tries to get to you, play Ikit. You know, his starting position is quite interesting enough. Even if it wasn't Ikit, I would play just for the starting position here alone. Not an easy start to know exactly where to go next though. This adds a little bit to the sandbox feel, which is always a good thing to have. Now, for the most part, the army, you have good infantry, great missile infantry and artillery, especially under Ikit. It should be overwhelmingly good. Sorry, I cannot even say the word. Good monstrous infantry and single entities, great heroes and quite varied. They don't have any flying units, and they lack real cavalry. Just a couple of hounds there, but no real cavalry. Replenishment is great, especially considering the climate. You must likely recover your army in no time to continue conquering. You also have decent recruitment bases, so that's always nice. Yeah. So, time to set the world on fire with Ikit Claw of the Skaven.